I have gotten meetings with organizations and foundations that have very clearly said on everything that they publish, we don't do meetings because I had that warm connection. So it is the best way to go. And, I say this because I know that this is the best outcome and the best way that I can get a meeting. I don't mind being a little pushy with my board, and I don't mind being a little annoying. The result of this is going to be very good if I can make that connection and get that introduction. So that's my first stop. That's where I'm putting all of my energy and all my resources into. If that doesn't pan out, if there's no connection, everything, that's fine. I think it just takes a little bit more work and a little bit more time to warm up a cold relationship, which can take longer.
Hi, friends. Ever wondered how you could turn your big ideas into results? Together, let's reimagine a better sector, tackle systemic issues, and yes, raise some serious cash. Welcome back to the Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. My name is Maria, and if you're new here, I'm a fundraising expert with almost 15 years of experience, and I'm on a mission to make sure EDs get the money they need without the stress. Today, we're going to be talking about something really interesting: how to get that first donor meeting with a prospective donor. To talk about that with us today is Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Maria. Happy to be here. And if you don't know me, my name is Caitlin McBride. I'm a certified fundraising executive. I've also been fundraising for over a decade, and my mission is really to make fundraising feel less chaotic and more doable for small nonprofits. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic. I love talking about this. I think it's so important. So let's get going.
So, the first meeting with a donor, I guess that can be quite challenging for people if you're not used to doing major gifts, fundraising, or relationship building in a one to one way. You might be kind of confused as to how do you actually get that meeting? What do you talk about? And then what happens after, right? A lot of people, what they think this meeting is, they go in and I'm going to do a pitch. I'm shaking with my little pitch deck and I'm going to tell them I want $100,000 and hopefully they say yes, right? But that's not usually the reality. What do you think some of the challenges have been for people in getting that first meeting?
I mean, I think some of it is like a kind of mental block towards it because they think, like, as you just mentioned, that they're going to walk in and this is like a make or break meeting where they're sitting there with their checkbook. And like, if you don't do everything perfectly right or say what they want to hear, then they're not going to write you that check. When really, that is not what this is about. It's very unlikely that you're going to get someone to like cut you a check after a first meeting. A meeting is like a first date. It's really getting to know the prospective funder, getting to know what their mission is, getting to know like the way that they want to change the world, and if your organization aligns with that. And it is like a two-way street. Part of the block for getting this meeting is like the nerves around it and, the fear around that. People don't want to be in that situation in case they say something wrong. That's part of it. And then there's also, the challenge of just kind of getting that warm introduction or just like finding the right person in general. Usually foundations or people who are major donors aren't very public about it. They're not like splashing their name and contact details around anywhere. Let's say you find a foundation and you're like, this looks like it could be a really good fit, but there's no information on like how to contact them, like what the application process is, anything like that. What about you? What kind of challenges have you seen with this?
So I think sometimes the executive director is, as you said, worried about pitching, about having these conversations, building relationships because they feel it's inauthentic, right? They feel like, oh, I don't know them. They know I want their money. I'm just supposed to pretend to be their friend for their money. And that's absolutely not what you're supposed to be doing, right? You're supposed to be building authentic relationships with someone who cares about the cause. So when you're talking about, it's supposed to be kind of like a date. I love that because on dates, on good dates, you listen, you ask questions, you don't talk a mile a minute and expect them to pay for dinner, right? You have a conversation and then you have a really good connection because you have shared interests, shared values. And then that's how you get your second date, right? Your third date, because you had an enjoyable experience. You want to be someone that the donor wants to talk to.
Exactly. And same as a date, it's a two-way street too. Like, you're not just coming in and like it's one-sided and everything. Like you're also there to assess whether or not this person or this organization or this foundation is a good partner for you. Like if they're coming in with unrealistic expectations for like reporting or like what this program is going to do, or they want to give you like a $5,000 grant, but like impact 10,000 people. There's a misalignment there. It is a chance for you to assess that person as much as for them to assess you.
That's the thing a lot of nonprofits forget is like we deliver a lot of value. We are this person's way of making the change that they want to see in the world a reality. We're actually one of their only ways of doing that. So, like, really show up with that as like you're delivering value to this person. It is an opportunity that you're looking to share. And maybe they give, maybe they don't, right? But just like a date, you're not going to force them to give. You're not going to force them to stay and listen. Like, it has to be a two-way street. So let's talk about who should you be inviting for a meeting? Like, how do you find these people? What do you think?
My first stop is always with the board. If I find something where I'm like, hey, this feels like a really good fit, I'm going to reach out to my board members and I'm going to ask, okay, does anybody know anybody or can make a warm introduction to this foundation? And like, I don't care how tenuous that link is. If I can get some kind of a connection and some kind of an intro, I'm going to go for it. So that is like my first stop. Like that warm connection is ideal. And like that is your best chance at getting a meeting. And I have gotten meetings with organizations and foundations that have very clearly said on everything that they publish, we don't do meetings because I had that warm connection. So it is the best way to go. And, I say this because I know that this is the best outcome and the best way that I can get a meeting. I don't mind being a little pushy with my board, and I don't mind being a little annoying. The result of this is going to be very good if I can make that connection and get that introduction. So that's my first stop. That's where I'm putting all of my energy and all my resources into. If that doesn't pan out, if there's no connection, everything, that's fine. I think it just takes a little bit more work and a little bit more time to warm up a cold relationship, which can take longer. But I'm usually looking on like their website. Not often they have like staff listings, but you could get lucky, or doing some research on LinkedIn, or even like looking at, are there maybe like staff members or anybody else who might have a connection there. Really prioritizing those warm relationships and trying to, yeah, have that intro. And I think when you're looking at, who to talk to, obviously things like executive directors are great, but also like for grants, things like program officers, if it is a corporate foundation, people who are in like the social impact team or corporate social responsibility, like these are the job titles that you're looking for. And those are the ones that you want to connect to. I've had some meetings where like I've gotten an intro to somebody in a totally wrong department. I still never think that's a waste of time because I'm still making that connection and making those inroads with an organization or with a company. And maybe it's an opportunity for me to be like, hey, maybe this isn't exactly what we're looking for. Can you point me in the right direction? So I'll still take any meeting, but those are the ones that I really want to chat to.
Nice. Ha- So I want to correct you because you said you were annoying, and that's not true. You were positively persistent. That's what I like to say.
I love that. Thank you.
That means like you ask for a meeting with a donor, maybe from your CRM, and you follow up the next week and the week after and the week after that. Like it's not about being annoying, but you have to understand that these people don't live in their inboxes the same way that you do, right? They're not checking their personal email the same way that you're checking your work email. There was this $50,000 donor. She's been giving for like literally like 6, 7 years at $50,000. And I want to ask, can I use your $50,000 as a match? Because I'm already assuming it's coming in, right? Like she has this long-standing relationship with the organization, but I haven't gone into chat with her. So I emailed her probably like 10 to 15 times over 6 months, only for her to tell my board chair she hasn't heard from us at all. What's going on? She used to hear from us all the time. Now she doesn't hear from us at all. Yes, so we finally got the meeting, but I want to share that story to illustrate that sometimes donors like they don't see the attempt, right? So try email, try LinkedIn. Also, you can just call them to say, like, hey, I would love to talk to you about this program and see if they have some time at that point. Try different channels is one. but be consistent and like make sure that you follow up more than once, especially if you never heard back. How do you know you're not ending up in spam? How do you know they don't want to donate? How do you know they don't want to communicate with you unless they tell you? And if they don't, then continue being persistent.
I love that. Positively persistent. That's really good. Yeah, because I think that fear of being annoying really weighs heavily on a lot of people's minds, even when it's a board member or a, prospective donor that I'm trying to get a meeting with. I'm okay with being like that persistent. Sometimes I've kind of gotten the vibe where they're like, I don't actually want to meet with you, but I'm going to. But I know when I get on that call, we're going to have a good conversation and a good chat. So I'm like, I'm okay with this being a little bit, me really putting the effort in here and, maybe verging on annoying because this call is going to go great and I'm going to be very charming. I know it.
So let's talk about the actual meeting since we're kind of nicely bridging to there. What I like to do is start with a little bit of small talk. Like, I want to hear a little bit about what they do, what they think. I've learned this framework for small talk so long ago. It's basically form, family, occupation, recreation, and material. So those are the questions that I want to be asking about. Like, what did you do this weekend? Oh, okay. Wow. You spend time with your family at a cottage. That's amazing. Do you do that often? Right? And learn a little bit more about them so I can see the things that I actually personally like about this person and that I actually want to talk about because these relationships have to be authentic. So that's one way to do that and to like give them the opportunity to talk about themselves, which everyone loves. So it's a double win. I get to hear about them and get to know what I like about them, and they get to talk about themselves and make a connection with someone new. After that, I will then probably ask them why they like the organization. Why do they take this meeting with you? What about your work speaks to them? And I think that that's a really important thing to collect in any donor meeting, but especially the first one if you haven't already collected it before, to really hear what was important about this cause, this leadership team, this mission that intrigued them enough to have a conversation. How do you start these off?
I love this. This is so fun seeing like different person's methods and techniques and everything. I'm usually reaching out, I'm asking for a 20-minute meeting. I'd like to clarify I'm not taking an hour of your time. And even like half an hour feels like psychologically a little bit like it feels like longer. 20 minutes, it's like, okay, whatever. That's like a coffee break. I can give that to her. So I always try to go for like, I just want like a 20-minute call just to chat through your priorities and everything and to see what's a fit. But I really liked the way that you started off, and I think, like, the small talk is important to, like, say that out loud and make that concentrated effort to get to know that person and to understand. Even if you, like, kind of reframe your mentality around it to have more like a date, still get nervous before a date, right? So that kinda helps me calm my nerves down and get to know this person as just an actual person, see if I like them or not, and, yeah, just kind of warm up the conversation, let it flow a little bit. But yeah, I also liked what you said about asking them a question. And I think that's too often where organizations go in the wrong direction. They're like, okay, this is my chance. This is where I'm going to pitch. This is where I'm going to tell them every single program we have and really kind of like lay it out there. No, this is not the time for that. This is the opportunity for you to learn more about them. Their opportunity for them to learn more about your organization is when you could give them a proposal or send an application, whatever. This is your chance to learn things about this organization, this foundation, this donor that isn't available anywhere else. Probably isn't on their website, probably isn't in like any funding history. This is your time. So use it wisely. So I always say, hey, I'd really love to learn more about, your mission, or if it's a funder, I'd like to learn about these like funding pillars. And, I read a little bit about your website, but I'd love for you to tell me more about this. And then, yeah, afterwards, I'd love to share a bit about the programs and we could see if there is a fit. And I always say, like, if not, that's totally okay. One other thing I do like to do as well before I kind of launch into these conversations, I always start with so much gratitude for taking this call. I'm really trying to be the voice of like positive reinforcement for donors and foundations and funders taking these calls because it's so critical and it's good for both parties. Like it means that we can spend 20 minutes together and then they don't have to spend time reading a completely misaligned funding proposal. It really like cuts down on their time and it means that like I don't have to spend that time making an application for something that might not be a fit. So I always really try to start off with like, thank you. We so appreciate this. This is like really, really helpful. And then, yeah, tell me about your mission. Tell me about you. Give me the advice and the information that I can't find anywhere else.
And I think that's actually critical, like getting that information so you can pitch the right thing versus having only one pitch ready that might be completely misaligned. There was this one donor that kept giving, I think it was like $20,000 to this organization that I worked at. And I thought maybe she's really passionate about food insecurity because she volunteered at, a homeless shelter. She was making food at home and passing it off to the homeless shelter. So I'm like, why does she volunteer with us, a food bank? Like, why us? Why does she donate and volunteer here? Maybe she just cares about poverty in general. Wrong. Not even close. Turns out her brother had addiction and as a way to reintegrate back into society, started volunteering at the food bank. So he actually loved his experience. He ended up meeting his fiance there and like, life moves on. This person had a very specific tie to the organization that I couldn't even have imagined made up. My data doesn't track whether her brother volunteered and married his fiance. There's no way for me to see that. So the only way that I could have known that is by having a conversation with her. And then I'm able to pitch the right program, which for her case was fund our volunteer program. Look at the way that we form connection with donors and community members. So it's just very, very interesting that you get this access to this information and many nonprofits, their first failure there is they just continue to talk about themselves, ask no questions, and then almost start like soft pitching. Like, I'm not telling you how much I need right now, but there's a need, like it's not really telling them about the impact and the stories behind the organization and letting them know that you're a personable, trustworthy leader.
And similarly, like if you're on a date and the person spends the whole time talking about themselves, it's probably not a good date. You're probably not going to go for a second date. You're probably not going to marry this person. I think sometimes people will kind of hide behind like an email. Like, don't send an email because in an email, you can only talk about one thing. You can only like pitch one program. You can only say, like, yeah, this is what I want to do. You're not able to kind of have that pivot and be able to switch back and forth based on the information that you're getting on the call. I shared this on the podcast before, but I had a call with a donor who had rejected my funding for $10,000 and got on the call with them. But then, as part of that conversation, I actually realized that it was totally the wrong program for them. I realized there was one that was much better fit. It was such a fit and such an important program for them. So I ended up getting funding for that program to the tune of $80,000 when I had originally asked for 10. And if I had just sent them an email, that would have never happened. I would have never been able to pivot and switch as I was able to do on the call. So I think it's so critical to have these meetings and also be actively listening. Don't just come in with a script. Actively listen and have a conversation.
That being said, I do like to leave this meeting with like a takeaway. So, like anything that I can do to reconnect with the stoner in a week and continue to be positively persistent, I will definitely do. So, if I'm talking about the news and like some article that I wrote, I will 100% email that donor that article. Or, oh, that was this really impactful story. Did you check your inbox? Oh, you missed it? Let me resend it to you. Or can I call you in like a few weeks to sort out like what we're going to do for this volunteering program? Whatever it is, like set another time when you're going to be talking to this donor and let them know about it so they can expect it. So, like, oh, yeah, we actually put out an amazing impact report that I would love for you to take a look at. I'll send it to you tomorrow morning or something like that. And then that gives you an opportunity to follow up a week after to be like, hey, what did you think about that documentary? What did you think about that article? Or what did you think about that community centric fundraising hub? Isn't it cool? So they're not only hearing things from you, there is a follow up, and it also shows that you were listening and that you're reliable, that you're willing to put in the work and be consistent.
Yeah, it's really about cultivating that relationship before you even make the ask. And in addition to all the things that you said, which I totally love, I also like to reach out with one or two questions. Sometimes I'll reach out with those questions even if I probably know the answer, but just to kind of reinforce like, hey, I'm doing this, please expect this application from me and I just want to make sure that like we're on the right page, that kind of thing. And then I will also always confirm when I've submitted the application and thank them again for their time and the meeting and all of that.
Something else that I really like to do is add them on LinkedIn. So if you know me at all, you probably know that I'm on LinkedIn a lot. And I want you to add me. So go ahead and do it. But I will definitely, when I talk to donors, like add them to my LinkedIn because it's almost a form of passive stewardship. Like they see my name pop up, they see the things that I'm talking about, that they see that I'm sharing organizational updates, and they don't have to be as directly involved, right? So it just continues to build that relationship more passively while you continue to do the active things like phone calls and sharing information and getting more information from them about what they want to do.
I love that. That's such a good idea. In the past, I've been a bit more shy on LinkedIn. I'm trying to build that, so add me too. But yeah, when you said that, I think I had a few moments where like I could have added a donor and I was too nervous and too shy to. And now I regret it. So if you're listening, don't make my mistakes. Add the donor. Just do it.
Add the donor, but only add them on LinkedIn. Like, don't add them on Instagram, don't add them on Facebook, unless it's like your organizational account or you're the executive director and have a very clean Instagram, Facebook, whatever. But LinkedIn is a very acceptable place to do this kind of interaction. You could be passive and active on LinkedIn, which is really interesting. Like, if you have an op ed, you can directly DM it to them without it seeming like a big deal.
So we've been kind of talking about this as if this meeting goes super well and, we think like this seems like a good fit. Going back to what we talked to before, this is a date. This is a two-way street. So I think like after the meeting is also a time for you to assess if this is a good fit and if this is a relationship that you want to pursue because it is a relationship and it is a partnership. And organizations need to and should be picky about who they invite into partnership with them. I'm curious if you've ever had this experience, Maria, and if you have any advice for organizations who might like have a meeting with a potential donor and it actually turns out to not be a good fit. Like how do you move forward after that kind of call happens?
Oh, that's definitely happened to me, and it was the worst. It was the worst because at this point, like I had already talked to the donor and they seemed pretty good. Like I liked them, but they were pitching me on this partnership of like we could use their green spaces as community gardens. So we had additional space for our programming. Awesome. So sold, right? So the person that pitched me, love them, great person. Now they invite me to a meeting with their property manager. And I then bring in my community gardens person, right? So it's four of us. The property manager starts saying a lot of things that are very concerning, including like, oh, well, we don't want like people to be like dirty or kind of drunk when they come and like support with our community garden. Like it is our garden. It has to look a certain way. It is property management after all. Right. So just the way they were talking about our service users, I was like, oof, nope, nope. Like if you could find a different property manager, a different property that they do understand what we're doing, they understand like we're not serving perfect people here. And also, it's a garden. Like, it's not meant to be perfect. A community garden is not meant to be the same thing as, the Queen's Palace or something like that, whatever this person was looking for. So, after that conversation, the first thing that I did was profusely apologize to my programs person because that's not the kind of impression that I want to be leading about how I do fundraising, the values that I hold, and the people that I'm welcoming to the organization, because that's not who is welcomed here, let me tell you. Right. So, as soon as they did that, like I actually had a conversation with the property manager and with the donor that introduced us. And it was like, hey, like that was deeply not okay. That was definitely not the kind of partnership that we're looking for. And the property manager just apologized, but it was clear that they didn't understand what they had done wrong. They're like, sorry, like if we came across some sort of way, but we really want people to look a certain way when they come do the community gardens, right? Or like we really want our office tenants to like be happy with the garden. And totally, we have those same goals, but just the way that you're portraying our service users and the way that you talk, I don't feel comfortable sending them over to you. I can't even have my program person talk to you safely. So, unfortunately, we just said, like, hey, we can't move forward with this. And actually, the property manager was donating stuff to us, gift in kind. So, we actually told them, like, we're also not going to take these anymore. So it was just that bad of a meeting. It does happen. Not every meeting leads to a marriage, that's totally fine. What about you? Do you have any stories like that?
Not like that. That was a really good example of being like selective and careful and protective of your organization and the people who work within it too. You could have gotten funding, you could have gotten a partnership and everything, but this is about more than dollars, more than a check, more than like a green space and everything. This is a partnership, and you get to be picky and selective about who you invite into that and what people and companies get to align with your nonprofit's brand. I had a chat with somebody from a corporate foundation. I was able to get a meeting with them through a connection through our board and sat down with this person, had a good conversation about their foundation and the kind of things that they funded. Turned out they were very into funding like programs for youth, which was not what my organization did. Instead of thinking of like, okay, well, maybe we could build a program for youth or we could do something like just chasing this funding. I was like, this is what we do. We're really proud of it. We're really good at it. Doesn't seem like we're a fit. And, I appreciate your time. Totally fine. Thanked them for the meeting, moved on, still maintained a good relationship, but then ended up getting a call completely out of the blue from this person. And they had gone through their funding process and allocated funding. But because it was COVID and everything was shut down, majority of the things that they were funding were not actually operating. So the organizations could not use the money. So he was like, we're in a really weird position where we have money that we don't know what to do with. But because I had gone in and had a conversation with him and was open and honest and built that relationship, he was just like, are you guys still running programs? And we were. We had pivoted to virtual. He was like, we're going to send you a check. But I had built that relationship and I had treated that relationship with openness and honesty and gratitude. And that stayed with that person. And, we were one of the first people that they thought of when this very unique situation came up.
So my first instinct while you were telling your story, I'm like, amazing story. Yours ends with money. Great. And you know what? I'm sure our listeners will have a similar thing like, oh, that's a bad story. This is a good story. But I think these are both good stories because there's agency that the nonprofit has. And that's the takeaway that I want people to have. Like, just because you have a meeting doesn't mean they're going to fund you, doesn't mean they're a good fit for you, doesn't mean that you want them to fund you. Just means that you're having a conversation to see if there is a good fit. That's the only thing you're trying to do. You're trying to get to know them. They're trying to get to know you. So it's not an endless pitch either, but these are both stories that show like the autonomy that nonprofits should have and how you can approach one of these conversations in your future. But Caitlin, any top tips, takeaways that you want EDs to leave this conversation with?
I want people to not be afraid of these meetings. I hope that this reduces some anxiety around it. I think that there is so much that I hear from people and so much pressure that people kind of put on these interactions and think that like this is their one shot and they've got to like wow them. You're not like auditioning for X Factor or American Idol or whatever. Like this is the start of something and it's a conversation. And at the end of the day, you're talking to a human being. Like this is just another person. Organizations have a lot to bring to the table, and as well as the funder or the donor or the corporation, whatever it may be. This is a two-way street, and I think we need to approach it as such.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. I hope that you got a lot out of this because Caitlin and I have been talking about how can our EDs have conversations that don't make them feel fearful, that make them feel like they're on equal footing, and how can we support more fundraisers in getting those meetings because they definitely open doors and they open wallets. So thank you so much for joining us today. As always, if you'd like to see our lovely faces, you can watch this episode on YouTube. Please like, comment, and subscribe over there to tell the algorithm that you want more content like this. But that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.